I've had tons of hands-on experience with Vengeance Demon Hunter on the Dragonflight Beta, and today I'll be giving my thoughts and first impressions on this spec. Before we get to the video though, a lot of my viewers aren't subscribed. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, consider hitting the subscribe button. It would really help me out and cost you nothing, and I have tons of great content coming in the future. So thank you for watching and enjoy the video. So, Vengeance Demon Hunter. Now I will say, coming into this expansion, I wasn't a big tank player. However, when Vengeance got itself released on beta, I really picked it up and started, learning more of it and playing more of it. And I will say that I really enjoy where Vengeance is now. So we'll dive in, talk about the class tree and the spec tree, and give you kind of like my thoughts on it, strengths, weaknesses, stuff like that. So if you guys want to check out as well my Havoc video on this, where I go over my thoughts on the Havoc trees and all their strengths and weaknesses, it'll be in the description, or it'll be up on the top. As well, I go over the class tree there as well. In terms of the class tree for Vengeance, I actually realistically think it's pretty much fine. I don't really think there's that many nodes that you're unhappy about. Realistically, there's a few nodes down in the bottom here. Stuff like Soul Sigil, stuff like Demon Muzzle that aren't really super powerful for Vengeance. They're just, a lot of points to get to. Demon Muzzle is not bad, and Soul Sigil isn't bad. Getting more Soul Fragments is always good for you, and, dealing that, reduced magic damage is also pretty good. I will say one thing is that if you're picking up a lot of the utility in the top, it's kind of hard to come down this right side here and get Quickened Sigils and get Extended Sigils. Just because, you're putting points into Sigil of Misery, you're putting points into Chaos Nova, you're putting points into stuff like Soul Rending, stuff like Demonic, things like Master of the Glaive to get down to Chaos Nova, things like Unleash Chaos Fragments over here, stuff like Shadow Restoration, Flame of Fury. So there's just a lot of points in the top row. So you can't always come down the middle here and grab what you want. But it is possible if you drop some of the options at the top to come down and grab all three capstones for Vengeance, which is pretty good. So I do like that. There's lots of variety in how you want to do that. If you want a little bit more damage, then you can come down and grab Quickened Sigils and a Natural Malice with Hunt and Collective Anguish. But if you want more of that CC, if you want more utility, then you can grab kind of your Sigil of Misery, improved Sigil of Misery, as well as Chaos Nova and Chaos Fragments. Now, Chaos Nova is actually a new pickup for Vengeance. They didn't have this before. I think having a 1 minute AoE stun for tank especially is really good, especially when that also has Chaos Fragments, which you generally want to pick up, giving you Soul Fragments, so it works as both kind of an offensive stop, or as well as a defensive button, kind of giving you that Soul Fragment, as well as giving you more just damage overall from your Soul Fragments through stuff like Spirit Bomb, right? So I think this is actually a really good pickup for them. In terms of other talents, stuff in the middle, Blazing Path, whatever, comes down to Fellblade. Fellblade's something we haven't taken in a while, but you want to take it for, that damage. Aura of Pain itself is also not bad, nowhere near as bad as it is for Havoc. Because you have stuff over here like Volatile Flame Blood, where your crits give you more fury. So it's not actually too terrible. I do think Fellblade is a more overall smoother generation option, and you don't really need too much fury as Vengeance as it stands. You have a lot of it, especially if you're taking Unrestrained Fury, giving you a 120 max fury bar to kind of like dump out a bunch of soul cleaves or whatever. But I think it's pretty good. You got stuff like Charred Warblade, you got stuff like Soul Rending, you have your Illidari Knowledge and Will of the Illidari to give you some of that tankiness on the tree. So you get like 15% leech, you get 6% magic reduction, 6% HP. So there is a lot of defensives. Oh, it was get 3% parry. A lot of defensiveness. There's a lot of survivability up here. Shadow Restoration. You get a lot of Fury generation. Sigil of Flame, Flames of Fury. Realistically, I'm pretty happy with this class tree. I don't think it's the best iteration we've had in a while. I think the best iteration was a few ones ago. But I think overall that as Vengeance, you're pretty happy. You also get Darkness now. You probably won't take this in dungeons. But in Raid, it's a good way of just grabbing access to that effect that you didn't have before. So overall, I'm actually pretty happy with where the class tree is for Vengeance. In terms of spec tree, now I'm a little less happy on this. So there's a few things, you're going to always take basically these talents up there. You gotta kind of have to. And you really don't want to go on the left side if you really don't have to. So these talents are really bad, and they block access to talents down here, which I'll get to. Meteoric Strikes reduces the cooldown of Infernal Strike by 8 seconds. Who really cares? Retaliation is fine, but it doesn't really do enough damage or generate enough threat to really matter. Like in terms of AoE, we're going to hit a lot. There are better points to put this into. And then finally, Fellflame Fortification. Having 10% reduced magic damage while Immolation Aura active is just, it's not very good. 10% isn't a lot, and Immolation Aura isn't up a significant portion of time to really have this matter. Realistically, you don't want to really ever take this because of just opportunity cost as well, right? If you look over on the other side of the tree, yes, this does suck. Perfectly Balanced Glaives, whatever, 6 seconds. But, you get Calcified Spikes. You take 10% reduced damage after Demon Spikes ends, which is really good. That's just way better than Fellflame Fortification. You have stuff like Fracture being here still, which is really good. In the middle, you have Roaring Fire, which isn't good, but you have Sigil of Silence, which is a crazy ability. 1 minute cooldown now, down from a minute and a half that it was before. So So having that stop, that group stop in on a minute cooldown, silencing a bunch of stuff is really, really valuable, especially for Vengeance. Coming down further here, this left side talents introduced the kind of new frailty stuff. I did a video going over it. It's really, really cool, really, really good. They nerfed it recently. They made it so that you basically, before, what you wanted to do was you wanted to kind of build up a big ramp in single target especially, and then use a bunch of your cooldowns during that ramp. What they did is they kind of lowered that ramp ability, like they made it ramp high, not as high, so you deal less damage during your ramp. But they move that damage into some of the abilities themselves. So they kind of move the damage profile around a little bit, so it's less peaky during the burst damage, and a little bit better outside of that. So they also lowered the skill ceiling doing that. I did a video talking about these nerfs as well. But I think on the left side, the frailty system is really fun. Feast of Soul, I don't think you ever really take. But other than that, on this side, like also Soulmonger, I don't think you really take either. It's just not really worth it. But on the left side here, I think you're going to end up taking a lot of these things in different scenarios. If you want the movement speed or the duration of Immolation Aura, that's really good. Spirit Bomb is really powerful. Void Reaver, making frailty reduce damage you take is really good. Also making Soul Cleave do it. You get stuff like Soul Furnace, just increasing your damage. You get stuff like Painbringer, which gives you DR whenever you consume souls. Focus Cleave, you just take that to path through, but it gives you some more primary target damage. Vulnerability, making them deal damage to you. This is what was nerfed. It used to be 4% per point. And then finally, Soul Crush, making frailty overlap. It gives you these really big stacks of frailty on targets that is really, really fun, really powerful to play around with. Whenever you have really high frailty stacks out, you feel really powerful. In the middle, it's stuff kind of with Feldev. You get Dark Light Boon, giving you more Feldevs. You get Ruinous Bulwark, which I don't think will ever really be taken, but it's there. You get stuff like Stoke the Flames, giving you more stuff. Flee the Demon is really good. It allows you to have much more Demon Spec uptime, so I really like that. And then Last Resort, it's really powerful, of course. Soul Carver is strong. However, I don't think it's going to be taken as much as it was now. Obviously, in single target, you'll probably take it. But in M+, I don't know if you do, because, you really want Last Resort. And then over here, Fart of the Flame and Unleashing Decree are both back. Now, you actually don't end up taking Unleashing Decree as Vengeance. You can if you run Quicken Sigils, but Fart of the Flame is actually really, really powerful. And again, I had a video on this, so if you want to do that, check it out. I have a whole Vengeance playlist, so if you're interested in Vengeance stuff, check out my Vengeance content. I go over it a lot there. Finally, on our right side, realistically, the right side is kind of the worst part of the tree. This is really where I'm not happy with it. If you kind of just cut out these talents here, I think it'd be really good. If you just look down here, you get like your fire damage. Cool, that makes sense. Fire Demise, Fire Brain increases fire damage you deal. Cool. Burning Alive spreads it, or Cycle of Binding. Whenever you flex a sigil, you get more sigils back. Charred Flesh, Immolation Aura, increase the duration, whatever. Down in Flames is really sick, giving you another charge of Fiery Brand, and then having it reduce the cooldown, so that's cool. So all this stuff down here is like a really Fiery Brand build, and when they nerfed Frailty, they actually buffed a lot of abilities, and one of those was Fiery Brand. And they gave it a really big buff, so the dot was like 600% buffed or something, which is really crazy. So these actually gain a lot of value. This is pretty interesting. But over here, these talents are not very good. To come down into Soul Barrier and Bulk Extraction, you have to give up 1, 2, and 3 talents to take Meteoric Strikes, Fell Flame Fortification into Soul Barrier or Bulk Extraction. And alone, these talents aren't even that powerful. Like, they're not really worth it to come down to take that. Same with Sigil Change, which really sucks. Sigil Change is one of perhaps the most iconic and useful things. A Mass Grip, especially in M+ dungeons, is so powerful. Death Grip, right now, Gorefeet's Grasp, sorry, is really the only one that can be used for that, just because it's so hard to come down to take Sigil Chains. Using these 3 points here means you have to end up giving it. So here, what I'll do is I'll go through and show you guys kind of like a dungeon build. The dungeon build's probably going to be something like this. You take a point here, point like that, come down, fodder, points there, 1 point there. I get 1 more point left. I can put that point wherever I want. I can put it in Soul Carver. I can put it in Volatile Flame Bud. I can put another point in Extended Spikes, or I can put a point. I'll put it in here. But to come up and get Sigil Chains, you have to end up dropping a lot. So what you probably want to end up dropping, or I'll put this in there, I guess. You drop a point in here. You'll probably drop a point in Extended Spikes, and probably a point in Burning Blood, just to come down and grab Sigil Chains. So you end up dropping a lot of damage reduction, you end up dropping the extension of spikes, and you end up dropping damage just to come in to take Sigil Chains, which really I don't think is very good. Sigil Chains is powerful, yes, but dropping it on all those things just to take like pretty useless talents to get into Sigil Chains is not good. I think Sigil Chains should maybe be moved against Sigil Silence. I don't know about that one really in the long run, because being able to pick have both is super powerful, of course. But I think Sigil Chains should be moved somewhere where it can actually be taken. Finally, Revel Plane just doesn't really work. It's only on primary target, so its spreading doesn't do anything. Likewise, generally you don't need the shield after Firebrand expires, so it kind of works against itself. Also, we do a lot of damage now, which is really good, but Revel in Pain itself isn't that good of a talent, especially because we want things to hit us during Fiery Brand, not after. Excuse me, Fiery Brand. Finally, Chains of Anger again, increasing the radius of your sigils. Sure, who cares? Whatever. Kind of a useless talent. I don't really think it's worth putting a point into over here. Just aim your sigils better, but whatever. So overall, though, I think besides those little right side of the tree, I think the rest of the spec tree is really, really good. I think Vengeance itself is really fun. The way you play the spec is like this ramping kind of get a bunch of frailty stacks, hit a bunch of targets, do a lot of damage. You feel really self-survivable. In a lot of scenarios, you can live without a healer fairly well, not as well as like a Blood Death Knight, but you are pretty self-reliant. And you have a lot of stops, like Sigil of Misery, Chaos Nova, and Sigil of Silence, as well as Imprison if it works, or your Kick. It makes you really, really good in like a pug scenario where a lot of things are going wrong, or you're really not doing good. Vengeance has that ability to really carry a key that some other tanks in the season don't. I think Vengeance itself is going to be a pretty good pick. Maybe not the best pick, but one of the better picks in Dungeons for sure. They have really good mobility. They're really, really fun to play. I really recommend people check them out. And they have all these unique, amazing sigils that allow them to have this kind of stopping potential and this carry potential for the pug key that maybe a tank, some other tanks don't have. So I think that's really good. I do think this iteration of Vengeance is probably one of the best. I do think the right side of the tree is bad and should be looked at for sure. It's really bad that we end up having to just kind of cut out all those talents. We lose access to Chain's Sigil of Chain, which is just a really powerful ability we've had for so long. It's so iconic. It really sucks that we don't have that anymore. I think one other weakness for them for sure, besides the lack of Sigil Chains, is just kind of their ability to have a short cooldown, right? Like you have good stuff like Calcified Spikes now, and Deflecting Spikes and all your Demon Spike stuff, and you have Fiery Brand on a minute cooldown. But beforehand, Demon Hunter had Blur. Vengeance had Blur in the class tree. I think that was really powerful, probably too powerful. But it leads to these scenarios where if you don't have your frailty stacks doing pretty well, you can be getting hit pretty hard. So I think one of the things for Vengeance is that while it is fun to play, it also is a little bit more complex than it was before. You do have to manage your frailty stacks. You have to manage your Calcified Spike uptime and your, your actually just Demon Spikes uptime. And then there's also a ton of utility you have to use. So I do think that if there's one downside to the new Vengeance, it is a little bit more complex than it was before. But it's nothing too insane, compared to a lot of, it's not like advanced calculus or something, right? So it's very playable, it's very fun, but it is harder than before. There is a higher ceiling, which I think personally is good. I'm a big fan of skill expression in games. I do think that a better player should be rewarded for their better play. However, I don't think that there should be that significant of a gap where if you're bad at a class or you're not as good, or maybe you're challenged in some way, maybe you have a disability where you just can't perform, then I don't think the floor should be that low. But I do like some form of skill expression within stuff. So if you're a tank who's looking for a main to play, you like tanks that can do big damage, you like tanks that have really high AoE damage with stuff like Spirit Bomb, and you like a tank that is able to survive on their own fairly well. You still will need a healer, but you have the ability to really carry a key with all your stopping, your damage, and stuff like that. And I do think Vengeance is a great option for you. I think Vengeance is really, really fun. I'm definitely going to be playing some Vengeance in Dragonflight. Obviously, Havoc is my main, Havoc's my love, but I will be playing some Vengeance for everybody doing Vengeance content, so stick around for that. But I think Vengeance for sure is so enjoyable. I've had a blast playing it on beta servers. It's been so fun. I do think the right side of the tree needs to be looked at. Losing access to Sigil of Chains, as well as just these kind of bad talents on the right side, isn't very fun. It's not very good. So I do think if they're going to change something, please change that. But otherwise, those are kind of my thoughts on Vengeance. I think it's really fun. It's really self-sufficient. Not as much as like a Blood Death Knight, but it's one of the most self-sufficient tanks, which is really good. And you do have that ability to kind of solo a key, carry something. So I think that's really good. So that's it for my video today. Thanks for checking this out. I'll be doing a few more of these on kind of other classes I've played on the beta, as well as, a few more guides for dungeons. I've done a lot of the dungeons on beta as well. So stick around for that. Subscribe if you like the content. Leave a like and a comment down below what your thoughts on Vengeance are and stuff like that. And I really appreciate everybody checking out the video and sending support, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.